inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Today's guest is Jesse Cole, founder of Kingdom Mogul Coaching. After over a decade in the field of education, Jesse was laid off from his job and felt the leading of the Lord to take his business on the side and become a full-time entrepreneur. We discuss the adventure of the last couple of years and how he has grown in doing business in partnership with God. Now, Jesse admits that he has an ambitious personality and used to think that when God gave him an idea, it had to be done immediately. But he shares how he has really learned how to move at the pace of God's grace and be led more by him than he is by money or anything else external. So let's get started with today's conversation with Jesse Cole. Listen in and enjoy. Jesse Cole, what's going on, sir?
I'm still winning. How are you, Shay?
I'm doing really well. It's good to see you. Haven't seen your face for probably a few months since the end of certification, but it's really good to see you. I've made this kind of an intentional decision around having more conversations with those who are a part of our Igniters family, because I think it's important for people to hear those stories too, and what that adventure has looked like for Igniters as well. And so kind of unique because you're both an Igniter as well as someone who is a Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Certified Service Professional. So there's a lot of different aspects that we'll be able to talk about. But let's get started. Jesse is a business coach, and I want to talk to you about like a couple years ago, kind of where you were, what was going on with you in business, how you even found Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. Just talk to me about where you were with the Lord and where you were with business at that time. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's always great when I get to talk to you because, I get encouraged and challenged. So I'm looking forward to that. I found KDE. I was interviewing somebody from my podcast when I first had launched it a couple of years ago, and she mentioned your book, Grace Over Grind. I believe there was Grace Over Grind, and it was Dr. Jim's book too, Our Unfair Advantage, around the same time. And so I got into it, I ordered it, read it. I'm like, man, she is speaking to me. And Dr. Jim, he was speaking to me as well. And so I kind of found it around the same time. And then from there, I think I went to the Bible app and did the
reading plan.
Did that and Fire Starter School. And then I just kept going and going and going and going from there.
Awesome. So what was going on with you in business at that time? Were you in business? How long had you been in business? And what was going on with you, even in your relationship with the Lord as it pertains to your business?
So I was just now starting. I had just got, about 9 months prior, I had just got fired from my job. I was working at a college campus, and education had been my profession up until I, went out and started my business. And so I had just got released from there. And then God was like, this is a great opportunity for you to do what I told you to do anyway. But he gave me the name a few years ago. I was always saying Kingdom Mogul, Kingdom Mogul. I didn't even really know what it meant. And he's still unveiling what that really means as well. So, and I'm excited about that. But I was in a place where I was trying to find out how to merge my faith with my business, because I felt as if, the world was teaching us that you had to keep them separate. And that was just too much work for me to try to be Marketplace Jesse and then Kingdom Jesse. I'm like, I'm one person. I serve one God. I'm one person. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm doing all this stuff, but this is who I am as one person. So just really trying to figure out what that looks like for me to, merge faith and business. And as he began to show me what that looked like for me, I felt as if, man, other people needed to hear this as well. And so when I first officially started Kingdom Mogul Coaching, my attempt was to go into corporate, right, and teach kingdom principles tied with the leadership bow,
Yes.
Wasn't received well, of course. And why am I hitting this brick wall? I'm talking about leadership, but it's just kingdom principles. And so whenever people heard, grow your faith as you grow your business, they associate that with church. And I had a hard time really trying to break it down to people who really didn't understand what kingdom meant. And just to be totally transparent, I knew that if I could get corporate contracts, that means I had a steady income stream, right?
Right.
Part of it was, this is what I love to do. Another part of it is, I'm trying to get this money too.
Right. I actually want to take a step back because you said something about how when you got let go from your job, that you really felt like the Lord was inviting you to the thing that he had told you to do anyway. So I want to go back to that for a second. Yeah. So when you were working your job, you were already kind of getting a sense for you were already kind of cultivating the idea and the dream for business, but you never actually started while you were working?
It was a side hustle. It was something I was doing on the side, like leadership speaking and things like. I was already doing that stuff for over 10 years anyway, right? Same content, same everything. I was already doing it, but I hadn't gone all in yet. Partly I didn't know how to. Another part of it, I got a family I got to feed, right? And so those speaking engagements sometimes were far and few in between. And I really wasn't coaching that much too, so I didn't really have a steady income coming in too. But I knew, because it just came so easy to me. And when I did it, when I got the opportunity to do it in any environment, I saw the transformation that took place.
Yes.
And in my sweet spot, right? When I was focused on being razor sharp effective on what God told me to do, right? And so it came so easy that sometimes I just pushed it to the side because it came so easy.
Yes.
And so when I got let go, and I knew it was about to happen, when I got let go, God was like, okay. I got let go on January 17th, and I started next day. I'm like, okay, I'm going full speed right now.
And you didn't even bother to look for another job at the time?
And I didn't even file for unemployment either.
And you didn't file for unemployment. So you I'm going all the way in.
I didn't feel the need to file for unemployment. I didn't feel the need to look for any other work. And I just went all in. And when I look back on it, that's crazy faith. My son was, I think he was like five at the time. My daughter was 2. My wife is a full-time, photographer. So she's been doing that for a while. And now I just lost my job. Right.
Right.
And so all of these things were happening, but I was just so confident in who God has called me to be that I knew that he was going to work it out. All I had to do was stay focused on what he told me to do.
Right. So then there's a thing that God told you to do. And then there was the desires Jesse had and trying to make sure that Jesse makes some cash money as soon as possible. So then you had, all right, I know what I'm good at. I see what he's gifted me with. I can have these conversations around leadership. I can coach people. I can do this with a kingdom perspective. But because I'm trying to figure out the fastest way to profitability, how about I focus on corporations and trying to get in the door there? All right. So now talk to me about how this works. When you have in your head that you've got your thought, your plan, and then you've got, well, this is what God's given me. He hasn't necessarily, I don't know if he had shared with you any specifics around how to show up, how to start or anything like that. But talk to me about those early stages and just even the tension of operating in that way.
Yeah, that's a good question. So he hadn't shown me what it looked like to show up already. It was just more like, this is what I told you to do. And I'm learning how to show up in the journey kind of
yes.
thing. So when you don't know if you don't know the next step, you kind of revert back to what you know, right? So I come from an educational background. That's where, I have my master's in educational leadership, whatever. So I know what that looks like. I've been over a decade. I know how to get into a school and get a contract. I know how to, sit at the table and have these conversations to provide not qualitative, but also quantitative, all that stuff. I know how to do that.
Yes.
Back to that. And it just wasn't working because I was talking about kingdom and people. And so I'm like, okay, what do I do next? Somebody said, maybe you should be a part of a networking group.
Uh-huh.
Be a part of the local business networking groups. And they were like, what do you do? I'm like, my name is Jesse Cole. I am just real confident. My 30-second elevator speech had it down pat. And after I got done speaking, it was like, Silence. And so whenever I would have, but here's the thing I discovered though. In a group setting, I would get that response. But when I got a chance to talk to people one-on-one, they're like, I see it.
Like, interesting.
I'm like, okay, well, why didn't you say anything when I was talking about it? But I was seeing how God was using me to really help shift the mindset of these high-level leaders one-on-one. But in the group, it was like I was an alien, right? All because I used the word faith.
Yes.
Just the word faith. And they equate faith with church and religion. But when I began to break down how they can include faith in their business, like it takes faith to pick up that call to make 35 calls a day. It takes faith to lead a team of 300 people when you're the only lead. Like it takes faith to show up every single. Now they began to see faith as confidence, right? And so learning how to speak that language, but also embedding those kingdom principles.
Right. So this is interesting. So this was in the early stages of you really stepping out. And this is approximately the same timing of you finding Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur and you joining Igniters. This is all happening around the same time?
Within the same 6 to 9 month period.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So talk to me about what some of the I want to talk about this from a couple angles. I want to talk about this from the perspective of what God has done with Jesse, like the internal Jesse stuff of the last couple years as you've grown and walking this out with him. And then I want to talk about some of the mechanics of how that showed up and how you operated and the things that you did in shifting and stuff like that with business. But talk to me about the internal Jesse transformation.
So internally, he's had me deal with some deep issues that I didn't even know were there. In order for me to really help people, I really had to deal with some stuff. I know we talked a while back about some things, but like tenderness and patience, like this, some of the fruit of the spirit that I thought I had that I was exercising, but he wanted to take me deeper there.
Yeah.
Abandonment issues, resentment, like, people like looking over me, like those kind of issues, really dealing with how, like, if that were to happen again, how am I supposed to respond to that kind of stuff?
Yes. How did that show up for you in business? Like, so how did the abandonment stuff show up in the context of trying to operate and grow a business? What did that look like for you?
If I'm trying to get a contract and they tell me no, like they look at the proposal and they say, man, this is good, but then I don't get it. I'm like, okay, if it's good and if you feel as if I can bring change and transformation, why did somebody else get the contract over me? So it almost felt as if like a tease kind of thing, right? Like, why am I continually doing this if it's not working? So it's kind of
so you internalize that rejection of the proposal to the rejection to Jesse.
Yeah. And so learning how to separate the two was big.
Yes.
Especially in business, like you got to do that. You got to do that. So that was a big thing for me. But also learning that, because I'm an ambitious person, I'm a go-getter. If God knows that if he shows it to me, I'm going after it. If you show it to me, I know it's supposed to be done.
Yes. It's
supposed to be done right now. Is that it's supposed to be done. And I'm like, okay, if you showed it to me now, it's supposed to be done within the next 6 months, right? And he knows that. That's just who I am in anything. I think he laughs at me, but he loves me through it at the same time.
Yeah, he does. He loves us all like that. He knows his kids.
And so learning how to discern when it's time to move and when it's time to rest. Like that is an ongoing thing with me, like learning how to rest in God. And I've discovered over the period of these last 1.5 years, 2 years, that I get more done when I rest versus when I'm running. And resting for me, it looks like several different things, whether it's going on a prayer walk and I'm listening and not talking, I'm just listening and getting instruction, right? And having enough peace to not move on when it's not time. Another part of resting for me is sitting on my couch with my house coat on, watching a documentary. But as I'm watching a documentary, God is speaking to me about something.
Yes.
And so he's like, okay, do this, text this person, email this person, call this person. And more gets done when I'm resting than if I'm just trying to run with something. So just learning how to do that, like those were the two biggest lessons, overcoming that deep-seated stuff and then learning how to rest in God, like God said.
Yes.
About it.
How to get that ambition to a place that submitted and yielded to completely to him, and how he wants to lead you and guide you, and in the pace of which he desires to do so.
Word is pace.
Pace.
Keyword is pace. And so I'm glad that you said that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So there are three things. Now I'm always thinking in 3s or 7s. All right. So like,
come on, give it to me, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Come on.
Right. And so there are 3 things that he's shown me over, especially in these last 9 months, the difference between a pivot. Well, 2 things: a pivot and a shifting. Right. And so I played college basketball. One key word in basketball is pivot. Right. Pivot means you are in position, but you're changing your position to another position, and your whole perspective changes, right? What you see changes. The whole way that you move changes. But a shifting is all about speed. I'm thinking about a car. You're shifting, right? And so learning how to shift, learning when to shift and when to pivot.
Yes.
Those 2 have been 2 big things I've learned as well.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to talk about the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur certification process for you and what God was working out. Because you came into certification. When you came into certification, I knew you as Jessie Cole, who helps you grow your faith as you grow your business. That was the conversation. You were still talking about corporate clients at that time. I don't know if you were thinking about something else, but the flyer that you showed me was really directed to corporate. And I remember when you came in and I was looking at it, and I'm like, that's not what I don't see that for right now. That's not what I'm seeing. I want you to talk to me about just how God shifted or pivoted. You tell me what it was, or if it was both or whatever it looked like, you during those months, during that 6 months, as you were refining your thought process around your business, as you were refining how you show up, how you're refining how you provide value in the marketplace, and the timing of which you do what. Like, talk to me about what that journey was like.
It was a combination of shifting and pivoting all at the same time, which can feel like a whirlwind, right? But if you're, and you got peace about it. And so, like you said, in the beginning, it was all about trying to attract corporate clients. But then he began to show me, as I began to work on my inner stuff, he began to show me that I don't have to create anything new, that I have everything that I need to add value to the audience that I'm assigned to, right?
Yes.
Show me that people tend to trust me with their stories. When they're talking about their stuff, even the nasty stuff, he began to show me that it's a safe place to talk to Jessie about that stuff.
Yes.
And it came so easy to me, again, that I just disregarded it. I'm like, I can't make money doing that. They're that money layer, right?
Right.
How can I build a business off of listening to people's stories? He said, it's not going to be that. You're going to show them how to take their story, their transformational experiences, and build a kingdom platform out of that. All right, God, what are you talking about these kingdom platforms? Well, what is that about? So he began to show me that in life, we're taught that we play different roles: father, husband, business leader, mama, uncle, auntie, friend. Like these, we're taught that these are roles that we play. But he's pulling us, he's showing us how to move out from roles and look at those things as platforms. And when you think about a platform, either a sound or a message is going forth. So he wants to use our total life as his platform to get his message out, right?
Yes.
3 areas that he's showing me how to help other people get their message out is through a book, empowerment program, and a live event or a virtual event. So how can you take this story and monetize it, pretty much?
Right. So now when he gave you this, so when you got this refinement and you realize, wait, there's people that are like, this is already a God-given gift, which is that I create safe spaces for people to come to me to share, unload all kinds of stuff, the stuff that they wouldn't want to share with much of anybody. And yet there's a safe space here to either process through, or either to reveal, or to just share the testimony of. And then there was another layer of refinement, which was, oh, okay, well, it's not that I'm making money off of sitting and listening to these stories. well, kind of, sort of, but really what I am listening to these stories, but what I'm helping people to do is once they've experienced transformation is how do we take that transformation and have that be something that serves other people. That's how God takes our tests and creates testimonies, how, all of that kind of stuff, right? Like, so there was that pivot for you. And then you realize, actually, I've already got this stuff, like all the stuff, all the pieces is already here. Now, I do remember even when you came to this realization and it's like, okay, this is it. There were still steps, there was still processing, there was still refinement. And how do I now show up with this refinement? How do I show up and get in front of people? So talk to me about kind of what you've had to work through with that as well.
It was as simple as taking my tie off. Really. So if you look at my pictures, my branded pictures before and look at them now, you're going to still see Jesse, but I'm not the suit and tie guy. I love dressing up.
Yes.
Right? Just suits and I still love it. But he began to show me to like just be who you are in your soul. Like you're that business casual guy where you can have these good conversations, but not to the point to where it's like it's too heavy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I was showing up that way before because that is what the industry said you had to do. In order to attract these kind of clientele, you gotta show up with an authority, right? But God began to show me that you already have that. Like
Come on.
God doesn't make you that. A tie doesn't make you that. You already have it. You already have what I call a presence ministry. You can walk into a room and sense what's going on and ask Holy Spirit what your assignment is and begin to, without even saying a word, just your presence can transform the room,
Yes.
right? He said, you already, so you don't need a tie for that.
Yeah.
You don't need a booty for that. So take the tie off, but unbutton the shirt and just be who I called you to be.
I love that.
It was that simple. Once I did that, I began to get more comfortable with myself.
Yes.
And talking about this message.
I love that so much. And that was really rich what you just shared there. I mean, you talk about authority. When you're operating in the I'm trying to either be money-led or other people's perspective-led, that created then a mask for you. That creates a mask for somebody because then they're having to show up the way they think something requires or think someone, finds this aspect necessary or whatever. But the beauty of it is that when you found the place where your authority lies and your assignment lies, then it allows you to be your complete, authentic self. Just show up, Jesse empowered and led by God.
Unapologetically. Absolutely.
That's so good. I love that. So what would you say has been maybe the biggest surprise in the adventure of the last couple of years for you?
Man. So two surprises. One can seem like a negative, but maybe it's a positive. The other one, it was just like, wow, that's you, God. And so one surprise is the you, God surprise is earlier we were talking about resting in God. And I didn't mention that when I first started the company, I was asking God, who are my ideal clients? And he said, don't worry about that. You just share the message and the right people will find you. You just share the message and the right people will come eat from your tree. And I'm like, that don't make no sense. Do market analysis. I got to see who needs what I have. He said, there are people out there who you are assigned to, but they don't know that you exist. Right. And so you have to share the message. Number one, we reveal this later. Number one, so I can get comfortable sharing the message. And number two, that people get comfortable hearing me share the message. Right. So there's like a whole confidence and comfortability piece. Right. So that leads to what I'm about to say now. So I was faithful as I could be with sharing the message, even when it was underdeveloped, just sharing what I heard, even if it was fragmented, just sharing what I heard. Sometimes I quoted scriptures wrong. It's like sharing what I heard, right? And what's been happening, especially in this pandemic, is people have been finding me. and they are attracted to a piece of the message. And I've been able to, sign clients because I've shared the message.
Yes. You were given a strategy from God, which was he gave you a marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy is go share the message, period.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, that's it. And so I didn't really have any marketing dollars. I didn't have any marketing strategy, but just to be obedient to what he told me to do. And the more I'm obedient to what he tells me to do, it begins to draw all men, and they begin to see Christ through the message, right? And so that's without even trying. I'm just being who he called me to be. I'm not putting on a mask. I'm not doing Facebook ads. I'm not doing anything. I'm not being manipulative in my copy. It's just say what I tell you to say, Jesse. Do that, son. If you do that, you don't got to worry about anything. And so I've been seeing that happen over and over again. The flip side to that is with our friend Tasha, not Tasha Cobbs, Tasha Glover.
Tasha Glover. The other Tasha.
Right? That's breaking chains.
That's right. That's right. She is.
She talks about this whole trailblazer anointing, right? And I cannot let that go. And I probably hit her up twice a month asking her, have you heard anything else about that? because it just resonates with me. Like the whole, when you're the first to do something or when you're out in front, there are going to be late adopters. Everybody's not going to respond. You're going to feel like you're alone sometimes. You're going to feel like, is anybody listening, right? And so really trying to figure out, how can I present this message in a way that it begins to attract the people who really need it, right? Because sometimes you might put something out there and you hear crickets. I'm like, is this thing on?
Yes.
God told me to say this. I know God told me to post this. I know God told me to spend 3 hours recording this video with this production and telling me what to do. And nobody's responding. So that is the flip side, having the grace and having the confidence in God that, okay, even though people may not be responding right now, what I'm doing is putting seed in the ground.
Yes. 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 If you didn't say that, I was going to say it. Because, that is absolutely the truth. And the beauty of that is that as long as you keep showing up, this is where we talk about just that diligence, not the grind where it's like, I'm just doing this thing in my own strength, trying to make it all happen, just do all the things. But no, it's being diligent with sharing the message. That's your assignment right now, which was share the message and being consistent with that, knowing that when you are planting those seeds diligently, that it does reap a harvest. And when you're doing that consistently, the beauty of it. So what I'm experiencing is, you already know my story because, you've heard it, but it's like walking that thing out, being diligent, consistent. And eventually you start to see that, there's fruit from that. But then what happens is it increases, the volume of fruit increases from that. And then as long as you're staying consistent, diligent, consistent, there's sometimes it's like, there's some seeds that you planted 4 years ago that just showed up. And there's some that was from last week that seemed to have, who knows, but you do know that you diligently need to plant the seeds.
And so for me, and thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing this back to my remembrance. It's something in our community we talk about, generosity.
Yes.
There's a word that goes before that.
Radical generosity.
Radical generosity. And part of that diligence for me is, first of all, understanding that diligence doesn't mean perfection, right? It just means it should continue to show up, up. But the radical generosity is another thing that I've been practicing more and more. And sometimes it looks different, but just being open to sowing seeds of radical generosity.
Yes.
I feel good when I'm able to do that. Even from a place of feeling like, man, I don't got enough money, but I can be generous in other ways.
Yes.
Maybe I do have the money, and God saying, don't give this person money, give them this piece of advice, which is going to help them make some money. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or understanding what radical generosity, this kingdom currency is not money. It's about your time, your talent, and your treasure, right? So how are you being how are you being generous and all
Yes. I mean, you're talking about the concept of being at a distribution center in the kingdom of God. It's just like there's resources of all various types, and it's like, if I'm a distribution center, that just means that I can release, I can receive, and I can release. I can just as easily receive as I can release. It's just like a flow through, ongoing.
Yeah. It doesn't, and if you're listening to this, I want you to know right now that it doesn't belong to you anyway.
Right.
The Lord's, right? Your kids don't belong to you. Your family, your husband doesn't belong. It belongs to we're just responsible for being good stewards of what God puts in our hands. Be obedient and be good stewards of what he put in your hands. And sometimes you might not get it right, but that's what grace is for.
Yes.
That's what grace is for. And so don't get caught up in trying to be being perfect. God is not this big monster in heaven waiting to pounce on you when you do something wrong. He's a father who loves you and he wants the best for you. And he's opened up heaven for you, right? And so he's opened up heaven for you, then you can do the same on earth.
I love it. That's a good, encouraging word to end with. Jesse, thank you for joining me today. How do people get connected with what you're doing?
Yeah, so you can visit Kingdom Mogul Coaching.com, or you can connect with us on Instagram at Coach Jesse, Coach Jesse Cole on Instagram, and Coach Jesse Cole on Facebook.com.
I love it. Thanks for joining me today, Jesse. Appreciate you sharing.
Thank you very much.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jesse today. I just want to end by reminding you that this week is our open enrollment week for our Igniters mentoring community. And if you really want to have mentorship and community, family surrounding you and walking out, doing business and partnership with God and going to the next level of what God has for you in terms of how you show up in business and how you serve others in the marketplace and have a greater kingdom impact, it's time for you to join us up in Igniters. You can do so at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/igniters through Friday. So we'll be closing registration on Friday and then we'll not be opening up for another few months. So if you're ready to join us, let's go. We'll talk to you more next week on the next episode of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.